to start liquidating all but 6 of its locations starting today. For more on what led Canada's oldest company to this new retail reality, we're joined by Doug Stevens of Retail Profit. Doug, for those who have been seeing the headlines, hearing the headlines, and probably aren't surprised that, given how challenging retail is and Hudson's Bay's struggles, that we're coming to a new era here. But what really happened over the last year, couple of years that got us to this point?
Well, yeah, I think you could sort of parcel the problems into 2 groups, John. I think there are the problems that have arisen over the decades as it pertains to the department stores, shopping centers in general. Certainly the prevalence of online shopping today didn't do department stores any favors. The fact that most of these stores anyway are mall-based stores has certainly contributed as well to some of those problems. And then I think just the general lack of any defined retail strategy, which has really persisted up until this very moment. The brand really hasn't had any sort of coherent strategy for improving customer service, for generally improving the customer experience, or giving shoppers, frankly, anything that would be surprising or, things that they couldn't find elsewhere or online. So that kind of brings us to where we are today, where the company is essentially now leveraged virtually everything of any value, except for some inventory and perhaps the worth of the brand. And
you have ultimately a few remaining stores. We see what happens with that. But you talked about online. It sounds like that basically starts to go away as well, despite the fact that you still have a few stores as well. Why not be in a position where you could potentially keep that part of the operation going? Is it just because everything associated with the supply chain and all things Hudson's Bay are challenged?
Yeah, I have to be honest. When I initially looked at this filing, and frankly, I think when companies like RioCan and Cadillac Fairview looked at this liquidation filing, it seemed really, really fast. It seemed as though they were essentially saying, look, we want to just liquidate everything and get out of Dodge within, a couple of months. And that raised some concerns on the part of landlords to say, well, wait a minute, hang on a second. You have to kind of make best efforts here around some form of restructuring, albeit you may not have the financing to do that right now, but you have to at least make some best efforts to make repayments on the outstanding amounts that were owed, which are significant, by the way. So I think that in this situation, it's the RioCans and perhaps Cadillac Fairviews that have pushed the company even to keep 6 stores open and try to keep those stores as going concerns. But the situation is still very liquid. They're saying, well, we may get financing. We're keeping the door open to that. We may get a buyer coming forward. And who knows, John, to your point, maybe that will become an option at some point, that Hudson's Bay continues to exist as an online-only entity.
So I guess when you think about where retail goes from here, and now we're also in this period of great uncertainty. So in the short term, I would imagine everybody in the industry, even if you're a savvy retailer, is navigating a more cautious consumer. But to really be successful in retail in 2025, you've written extensively about this as well. What is the game plan that works?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to ultimately provide consumers with something that they cannot easily find elsewhere. And I'm not suggesting that that's an easy thing to do, but you have to try and either provide, whether it's a product or an experience that is not entirely commodified in this market. And, that is a tall order. Having said that, there are brands that are doing it. Even in the shopping or in the department store sector, you look at another Canadian brand like Simon's, which seems to have found the right sort of balance between product execution and experience in store. And they're doing quite well in the shadow of this wreckage.
All right. Well, we'll watch very closely. And Doug, appreciate you stopping by. Doug Stevens, founder of Retail.